Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Golf Insider Webcast and Podcast. I'm Jeff Bergerson, joined as always by my partner, mysteriously, Zachary Turcotte. We are with fantasygolfinsider.com, where if you are not a premium member right now, you need to go on, sign up, get our PGA Tour package, our Euro Tour package, and get some of the best articles, insight, and tools in the industry to do your research for your fantasy golf leagues and your DFS. This broadcast is also available in podcast form on iTunes, on Stitcher for those of you who hate Apple. And give us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Zachary, before we recap the U.S. Open, I got some shout-outs. A lot of shout-outs this week for people who did well. Obviously, the optimal lineup kicked ass this week. Shout-out goes to Philip Tingen, who took third in the $10,000 mini birdie, won a bunch of cash. So good job, Philip. Jim Phelps, Stevie Allen, Justin Burntier, and Mike Muller. Congratulations, guys. Those were just some of the tweets and emails that I saw of people who did really well last week.
Yeah, we actually had another subscriber, and I can't remember the full DK name, but Randy out there actually put in, and we had actually done some coaching over the last few weeks, and I was looking at the optimal lineup, and it was just smoking. And I had it in my cash games, great, so I won a couple $100 with it on there. And I was just curious going through, thinking, I wonder how this thing did if I would have put it into like the 300 game. And then I went and looked at it, and I noticed one of our subscribers, Randman, was right up there at the top with the optimal lineup. He looked like he was a sure shot to win the thing, and then Lee Westwood teed off yesterday. And
did Lee Westwood things on Sunday.
Oh God, he probably lost him 20 points or so in the round, just going backwards by playing that day. So that was sad. I felt bad for him, but yeah, and the optimal lineup was fantastic.
People cleaned up with it. I heard from a lot of people. So congrats, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about the U.S. Open. DJ obviously overcame some demons. Paulina trotted out with her short skirt. Anything else that you took away from it?
I mean, it was an interesting tournament. I hate when it starts out with weather like that. They're stopping, they're starting, they're stopping, they're starting. You got delays. The tee times are all screwed. They're all screwed up. You got guys starting at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
They're finishing up the first group of guys real early one day, and then they don't play for almost 2 days after that. So the beginning of it was a little bit of a mess. The rules thing.
Let's just tie it in to the shot of the week.
Yeah.
Right now. Okay. Let's just do it because, in my humble opinion, and I'm a little bit negative and cynical.
You, Mr. Sunshine?
I thought the U.S. Open sucked from top to bottom, to be honest with you. I think starting with the weather, which was not the USGA's fault, it wasn't Oakmon's fault, it was nobody's fault. But when you throw the delays in, guys are starting, stopping. It was an absolute cluster. And then I heard from people who were at the event, and I'm seeing pictures on Twitter.
People just crowded in.
Of huddled in like porta potties and stuff.
Sure.
And then they see limited action, and then I guess they don't get any sort of refund or anything from the tournament. They paid full price to go through that and sit in shelters.
Yeah, there's not much you can really do for them, I guess.
I think you got to refund people some money. I mean, you can't let them in the next day. I get that, but give them some money back. Jesus, it looked absolutely dreadful. And then, obviously, let's talk about the ruling,
rules.
Let's
talk about it a little bit, right? Let's talk about it. I mean, let's just get it out there.
I thought it was complete and utter bullshit,
Nonsense.
The way they handled it.
Well, I was mad at first because before what we're going to talk about was the first ruling where DJ hits it off the tee, terrible shot, into the rough.
You couldn't even locate the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he's in there just trying to find the thing.
Yeah.
They find the thing, and then they decide, and I get it. Some moron's going to tell me, well, that's what the rule says. I know what the fucking rule says. Don't tell me what the rule says. Stop it. I understand what the rule says. I'm disagreeing with what the rule is on it. So he's hit a terrible shot.
Yeah.
And for some reason, because they've got the TV tower there.
The TV tower, of which, if he takes that angle at the hole, he's screwed anyway. He's going to go twice as high as the goddamn TV tower.
It's not coming into play whatsoever.
No.
But the ruling is that he gets to basically pull it out of the garbage, place it back over here into the fairway, and of course he hits a great shot onto the green.
Because somehow the TV tower wasn't in the direct line of sight from where he dropped the ball. Oh, God, give me a break.
So that was horrible. So I was angry at first as I thought, oh, boy, they just gave him a stroke there.
He might still be trying to hack out of that now.
Yeah, it would have been a disaster. He could have definitely double bogeyed on that hole for sure. He would have been in horrible position coming on. So I didn't like that. No. So I thought, oh, that's nonsense, which I think I tweeted. That's nonsense. And then the next hole comes around, and he's putting, and he suddenly stops. I thought, oh boy, here we go. Because I've seen this happen. This is what happened to Tom Watson at the Masters, and nobody sees anything. And he's talking to the official. The ball moved. And, and you look at it from the regular angle 10 times, and you can't see a thing. Nope. And he hasn't grounded the club. He hasn't addressed the ball yet. He's preparing to. He's close to. But he hasn't. And then they give you the zoom all the way in, and this. Even on the zoom in, you can see it rotate backwards, maybe a quarter of a turn
backwards.
Or so. Backwards. Yes. So almost
he's swinging
so
forwards.
Impossible that he could have touched the ball or maneuvered the ball in any way. Twitter broke down. The pros who were watching this were angry. From guys like Spieth, Rory McIlroy
Ricky.
Was on there. He was ripping it apart. Castro was on there. He was ripping it apart. So everybody who was watching was losing their mind. And then to compound the mistakes. So DJ clears it with the rules official. Says, you know what, it moved, but I didn't move it. So, we've talked about this before. Guys have impeccable integrity when it comes to golf in terms of this game. If he had just gone and putted the ball, nobody would have known the difference. Nobody would have said anything. He says to the rules official, the ball moved just a little bit. I didn't move it. I didn't address the ball. That should be it. Right there. Game over. Nope. USGA, the rules official, they come back out
just
to
the way
DJ.
They handled it.
They come back out to him later in the middle of his round and say, well, we're going to take a look at it with you after the round. And then make a decision. When they clearly had already made a decision, the rules guy comes into the booth.
He comes on and says, we believe that
he's made the decision in his head. Why is there any, if you're going to make a bad call, just own your bad call,
Do
right?
It. Yeah, just make it official. Tell everybody, DJ and the other competitors.
It changed the whole dynamic of the last round because everybody down the stretch. Does DJ have the stroke? Does he not? Am I playing more aggressively? Am I playing more conservative? And same thing with DJ. He doesn't know what he's doing out there either. And then after the round ends, they take the stroke from him anyways. I just thought, can you imagine watching an NFL game where they say, this might have been pass interference. We might take that field goal off the board and you lose the game later on. We'll review it with the guy who did the pass interference after the game and see what he thinks, but then make the call against him. Anyway, was DJ going to change his mind after the round?
They just got so lucky it didn't come into play. Because can you imagine DJ walking in and them say, and it's a tie or something, and them saying, nope, you're done, you lose.
Or now it's going to an 18-hole playoff tomorrow. It could have been chaos. I was kind of rooting for chaos, except for the fact that it would have delayed pricing today.
I know, and then I didn't want to do the webcast without pricing.
That would have made me really, really angry.
I know.
So it turned out I didn't really want that. But egg on their face all around. It was
turned out okay.
It was horrible. Just left a bad taste to finish an already kind of rough event.
Well, and then the tournament wasn't even, the course was not that difficult. And I might be in the minority. I want to see really, really hard conditions.
I know
it was not hard enough. You were wanting
a +4 winning score.
I wanted to see a +4, and they touted it as that. And
all year from the last year on.
Oh yeah,
it was,
and the rain definitely softened up the course, so that was part of it. But that should also hinder them when in the rough. It should be that much more difficult. So it should kind of cancel out. Just wasn't nearly as hard as I thought. Most people don't want to see it that difficult. I do, but
it crushed plenty of the top players out
there.
It
did,
so.
And then at the end there was no drama.
No, there was none.
Everybody but DJ shit the bed at the end.
Yeah, I kept waiting for DJ to have his little melt. And
I did too.
His credit, he was very good.
He played well.
Yeah,
it wasn't amazing.
It was disappointing to see Shane Lowry suck so much from about the last 12 holes or so. Just awful golf. He was never in position to score all day long. I don't know if he was just playing scared or timid, but from the get-go, he looked like he was just trying to get through, and when guys start playing like that, they just start hemorrhaging strokes.
Well, he came out in the morning firing. He looked great early in the morning. So.
Yeah, but that last day he was. He started out pretty even. He wasn't losing, but once he lost that first one, then it was kind of game over after that, and he just toppled down the stretch. And Yeah, we had no real drama. Not near
No, there wasn't anything.
Not near the energy that we had last year when we watched Tommy G lose $45,000.
I think Head Chopper was
Head Chopper lost $1 million. So
close to $1 million.
Yeah, close to $1 million, and Tommy's part of that was 45. I mean, that was last year was pretty crazy. I still remember the scene at the hotel watching it. It was nothing at all.
Bar.
Nothing at all like that this year. It was just kind of I can flip it off here at the end. DJ had already won the tournament. They're still showing coverage of Lowry finishing up the last hole. And
the only thing to stay tuned for was Paulina walking across the catwalk.
You knew they'd finally get a shot of her coming up.
Yeah, for sure.
In her little white dress.
Oh, my God.
Not the worst thing we saw.
No.
Probably the best.
Is easily the best.
Easily the best.
Yeah. So that's our shot of the week. Was that enough rant for you? That was dedicated to
Paulina.
Discount Belichick. I hope you're happy with that rant. I know you asked for it. All right.
We've got a nicer little bottle here tonight.
Yeah, you want to talk about that? Who bought that for you?
This is
I know you didn't buy it yourself.
It's from one of our favorite subscribers. Now he's definitely a favorite subscriber.
Obviously.
From Clint Eastwood, painting fame. This came from Bo Bowman, who I've been working with and coaching with over the last few weeks in terms of helping him build his lineups and things. Working on a process of getting core, secondary, tertiary players all together and kind of figuring out how to mix and match some of those guys. And as a very kind tribute, he sent out this amazing bottle of Macallan Rare Cask.
Nice.
Which is so good that even Jeffrey here has got a little sipper underneath the bar. Jeffrey hates scotch. When I put it under his nose, he didn't die tonight.
No, so it's good.
He's actually having a little bit. So the moral of the story, the reason I'm telling you this is because if any of you really do want that close sort of coaching, of helping build lineups,
you're available for a prize?
This is a good way to get my attention.
Oh, okay.
Right here. So thank you, Bo. And yes, I can be bought and sold as you've known for many years.
Speaking of wonderful gifts.
Yes. We doubted him. I doubted him. And he came.
Never doubted you, Tommy G.
We both did. But
the real life.
We got the
life.
We got the
Lisa
life here
Ann.
from Lisa Ann today. We got autographed, personalized notes here.
Yep. Very nice.
I'm excited. I think this is going to be a fantastic read. I
know, how could it not be?
I know you read Jenna Jameson's autobiography, so I
did actually read
I'm
Jenna
sure you'll
Jameson's.
be waiting in anticipation to kick this one off.
I'll read it definitely.
Maybe we can read our favorite passages on air next week, right? The FGI Book Club inaugural episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you win this past week, Wacky Wagers, or did you have a Wacky Wager?
We didn't come up with one. I tried to salvage one with the cut line. We actually had a guy out there following us. He said the cut line's going to be at 6, and I said, ha ha ha! It's easily going to be higher. With my usual gusto in terms of missing my cut line prediction.
Jinx.
And I said to him, let's do a Wacky Wager. I haven't done one. I was kind of explaining some of the things I won, and he didn't end up taking me up on it. And sure enough, boom, right on the nose, right in the middle, +6, it hit. So I would have lost on that one. But no, I didn't get one last week. I need to be more forceful in getting the wagers out there. I think people are getting intimidated when they see people sending me like bottles of expensive
drivers
and paintings. It doesn't have to be crazy. So
autograph books.
People have set an amazing trend, which I hope continues in terms of the wagers that they put up. But feel free to put up something silly or funny.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be all that exotic. So,
although those are appreciated.
Always.
All right. So have we recapped and gone off track enough? I think we needed to, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's like coming back from a big trip,
Right.
It's because you come back to this week and you're like, what do we have coming? And it has such a shitty name to it, I mean, if it had something a little more fun, like one of the more traditional ones, you'd be a little more excited. But the Quicken Loans.
The Quicken Loans. The Monday after Las Vegas is what we should call it.
Is what it is.
Yeah. Speaking of Vegas, we're going to be out in Vegas for the World Series of Poker, so we should mention that from July 5th through the 10th. Any of you guys want to meet up with us, grab some drinks, we're going to do that. We're going to play in a couple of WSOP events. We're going to go to UFC 200. So we'll talk about that in the coming weeks as well.
Yeah, we've already heard from a couple people that will be out there. So hopefully if we hear from enough folks that are headed out that direction, we can arrange like a night.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Go someplace to a lounge or something and just shoot the shit and talk a little bit of golf.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, cool. So let's talk about the Quicken Loans National.
Here we go. Let's get that energy going.
After a hiatus from Congressional Country Club last year, it's back. When you're looking at tournament history, only look at 2012 to 2014, and then 2007 to 2009 before that. That's when it was at Congressional. Also, you can look at the 2011 U.S. Open because that was at Congressional as well. It is the blue course, 7,569 yards, par 71. It's an invitational event, so we have a smaller field, about 120 players or so.
Be a little more aggressive this week.
Absolutely, so keep that in mind when you're building your rosters. More guys are going to make the cut, or a higher percentage are going to make the cut. Key stats this week: strokes gained, tee to green, strokes gained putting, the usual. I also have birdies or better, par 4 scoring, scrambling. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, I think that sounds about right.
Okay. Let's look at the salaries. Let's look at we'll start with the top tier. It's kind of a lack thereof of the top tier of the guys in the world.
Typically when you're up at that top tier, there's usually 2 or 3 guys that have standout tournament histories that people are going to be drawn to. And this week, we've got Ricky Fowler up at the top.
Yep.
I don't know if Ricky is doing much to get people excited these days.
I don't think people are going to be on him too much, are they?
I was completely off him for the U.S. Open. He's been playing pretty erratic. When Ricky's barely making or missing cuts, he's really been chasing the cut line around the last month and a half or so. Pretty much since the Masters. He came into the Masters on fire. He's been having a great season, and since the Masters, over the last 2 months, you don't know what he's going to do from week to week. So at that price, interesting GPP play. I'm certainly not going to pay at all for him for cash. But
oh no,
one of these weeks it comes together. With Ricky, it always just comes together within a snap, and he crushes a field and he crushes an event. I don't know if that's going to be this week, but with the field the way that it is, I don't really want to pay up for him.
I don't either.
So I probably won't be owning him.
I don't have much interest in Furyk either, despite how good he looked last week at the U.S. Open.
It's a good course for Furyk last week.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, because he's not going to rack up a bunch of birdies, which is his style.
Right. He's a par guy. Yeah. And he was a Pittsburgh guy. So those were both key things. And he had a great final day. The final day really was a tale of a lot of different rounds for some guys. You had guys like Westwood starting at -2 and ending up at what plus 25 or whatever it was. He might still be out there hacking the ball around.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of but the guys who could just play consistent golf like Furyk were great. But I don't want to pay over $11,000 for Furyk this week. That's not favorable. It's going to be almost impossible for him to live up to that score again this week. So you look at that top of that list. I don't like any of those guys. I may look a little bit at Mark Leishman at $10,900. He's been very consistent. He's starting to post one top 20 finish after another. But now he's the 4th most expensive player on the roster this week. And is he a lock to be in the top 10? Probably not.
No, so, top 20 finish isn't going to cut it.
Exactly. So I may hedge and just have a small amount. He may be one of those guys who's in my secondary or tertiary groups. Not because I think he's bad or because he's worse than the other players. I do think he can perform well. I just don't want to make that big of an investment right there. So we're talking about a lot of guys that we probably won't invest much in, if at all.
Yep.
Who do you want to start your roster with up at the top?
I will for GPPs. I think the only guy that really interests me up top would be Patrick Reed a little bit this week. I just think he's so much better than everybody else up in that range, outside of Ricky Fowler when Ricky Fowler's right. Yeah. I just think Patrick Reed, and he's coming off of just a brutal end to his U.S. Open where he just crushed people.
Yeah, I know. He was he was the one guy in my core who did not make the cut, and he gave us hope. He did. He went birdie, 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 miracle down the stretch with just a couple holes left, and then bogeyed the last 2 and ended up missing, which was just crushing for a lot of my rosters. If he makes it through the cut, I am in position to do a lot of things. All my cash games are in play. A couple extra GPP teams are in play. So yeah, he definitely crushed us this past week, which was frustrating because he should have been one of those guys who was able to kind of scramble out of some of that crap and putt his way through. But he's been struggling with that putter this year. So I don't know if he gets it figured out this week, but I do like the fact that he has had a lot of top 10 finishes this year. And at these types of fields, there's going to be a point like Pat Mayo says every week, there's going to be a point where you look at the leaderboard and Patrick Reed is up at the top. Hopefully for once, it's at the end of round 4.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be a tough sell, but I mean,
not too much else up there that really interests me.
No, I think even the pros this week. If we look at ownership distribution, it's going to be spread really wide this week. There's a lot of weeks. You can look at a week like last week or the last couple weeks, and you can say, this guy's going to be owned 100% by player X, Y, Z. I don't see that this week. There isn't really anybody. They may still do that, but they'll be taking much more of a guess, much more of a shot in the dark on some of these guys at the top. So I think for the most part, I will probably be avoiding a lot of those guys. The first guy I probably will take a look at 9,900 that I'll have a small bit of will be Brendan Steele. He seems to be right again. He had a little bit of a stretch where he struggled, but I think one of the big things with him is his putter doesn't tend to perform that well. But bent grass, he's actually one of the better putters in this field on bent grass. So that should help him out quite a bit. Obviously a great tee to green game. Hits the ball pretty well and scores well. So has a nice tournament history here. He's 3 for 3 making the cut. He was in the top 10 in 2014. So for 9,900, I'm not excited to pay 9,900. I mean, when you look at a guy like Brendan Steele, you want to see his price tag be like 8,000.
Right.
8,000.
Yep.
You get a little anxious when it's like 8,500, 9,900. It's deflating. It's not very exciting. But there's not a lot of guys in this range that I am all that excited about. So he is one of the guys that I feel should be a little bit more consistent than some of those other names.
Right. A couple of guys who I loved before the pricing was released today.
Yeah, that's always the best part. You're doing your research. You peg like 3 or 4 different players here. You think,
like, this is going to look nice in the 7K range where I can get Roberto Castro and Robert Garrigus.
7,400. He'll be like 6,800.
Yep. So I can stack 2 studs, have a couple guys at 73, 7,400. Price is released today, and I get Castro for 86 and Robert Garrigus for 8,000.
Right. I can't remember the last time Garrigus was in the 7,000s, let alone 8.
Yeah,
he's like a $6,500 player week after week, but he's done well here, and all of a sudden he's strung together a few decent tournaments in a row. And
obviously played well in the U.S. Open in 2011 here, but I just think that's a hefty price tag. When you compare other guys right in that range to him that I think are, have far better potential, like maybe Charles Howell III.
Daniel Summerhays. Jamie Lovemark.
Yeah, right. Been playing real well this year. Summerhays lately. Obviously, you look good at the U.S. Open, can putt really well. So I like those guys in that middle range. Is Bryson DeChambeau going to carry the momentum from the U.S. Open into a low-level tournament?
I'm not touching him this week
not.
At 8,800. And we saw this before. I'm going to sit back and watch a little bit now. And I mean, he came out of the Masters, great. Had a nice event.
It was good at RBC, Heritage.
At Heritage the week after that. And then 4 straight missed cuts, which were awful. And then he bounced back 38th. He's a guy who tends to be right on that cut line. Friday afternoon, he's going to be the guy who you're sweating on almost all your rosters. If he gets through there, he seems fine. But he's 8,800 now. So he's got to do something again. The last time he jumped up into this range, I think he jumped up to like 9,800 after the Heritage. And everybody was on board, and he smashed him. And then he smashed him again and again and again, pretty much up until the U.S. Open when he did very well.
Yeah.
And I'm just not sure what I'm going to get out of him. And I don't want to pay 8,800 for him yet. I would have liked to have seen him be in that 78 to 82 range with most of those other players. I think that would have been a fair price where I probably would have had a little more interest in taking a 5 to 10% share on DeChambeau. But I'm not convinced that I can jump in right now and make him a core or even like a high secondary player. I can't make him 50 or 20% of my lineups at this point. And at 8,800, that does squeeze off a good amount of salary cap space. I don't know. I'm going to be off him, but again, with the price being as elevated as it is, that may also keep people away. Will that keep you away?
I don't think it's going to keep people away.
Really?
I think he's just that popular of a play. He's just dynamic guy.
I love those hats.
Yeah, that's such a brilliant marketing
those red
move.
Yeah, those red. He looks so sharp in those red and the red.
He's a decent looking guy too. So I mean, he's just got a presence about him that people I think are drawn to.
So you like him?
This week, I I don't know that I will own a tremendous amount of them. His upside is freaky though.
Yeah.
And I promise
long
you,
term,
at some point.
I mean, if we could buy him long term, if I could own DeChambeau, the stock, over the next 5 years,
I'd buy in now.
It'd be fantastic because I think he's going to be a tremendous player. Look at the guys that he's following in terms of achievement.
Yeah,
it's a pretty elite list.
Absolutely.
So, long term, I like it.
This week, I'm not so sure.
It's shaky. It's really shaky at 8,800. Yeah. I don't know what to expect out of him. And I think as a younger player, some of these guys do try to take their foot off the pedal. They have a week like the U.S. Open or the Masters where they perform really well, and then they jump into the next week's event. It's
True.
Like, okay, now we're at Quicken Loans.
Yeah.
All right. And they can't get as excited for it as they normally would. It takes them a couple of seasons to hit the level of maturity where they can play consistently from week to week. So there may be a little bit of a letdown coming out of the U.S. Open. So I will probably stay away from him this week at 8,800.
Sleeper range, 7,000, even 6K guys that are attracting your attention.
There's quite a few guys.
A few guys who I think are decent picks this week. I like Adam Hadwin at 7,500. Been playing really good. David Hearn is another guy at 7,400. I think that's a good price for those guys. Hudson Swafford at 7,000. Yeah, I like all of those guys in that range.
Are you ready to start doing some dabbing this week with Harold Varner III? I have been.
Are you in now?
I'm probably too late. I'm probably the guy who jumps on the wagon that breaks the axle. Is what ends up happening. But you can't deny what's been happening with him over the last 2 to 3 months or so. He had a really atrocious start to the 2016 season, and everybody just slowly bailed except for Zach Woods, who has remained steadfast throughout the year with him, and he's been rewarded. And he's actually been playing really well as of late, and we had a couple subscribers who were kind of egging me on and saying, well, he's good. You got to take him this week at St. Jude. And I said, I'm going to go with Goosen. I know what I'm getting with Goosen. He's going to be consistent. And this was at the St. Jude.
Yep.
And Goosen finished 12th. But Varner scored 5 more points than he did. So I heard about it, of course.
No, people never call you out.
They never remind you when you're wrong, especially with really menial predictions. Just dumb nonsense. I make like a joke. I forgot they changed.
You got blasted
on Twitter. I forgot that they had changed the rules with the
rollback for the
rollback and the withdrawal. I wanted to make a joke about Stenson, like, oh, he's gonna actually gain back points, and I'm gonna say something not so nice, but I'll just say some person. They changed that rule a couple weeks ago. Don't you guys even pay attention anymore? So on Twitter, I'm gonna explain something on Twitter for the way that I react. If I start my reply with LOL, that's shorthand for fuck you without saying fuck you. ... And they said, yes, we cleared that up. I said disregard 2 hours ago, so I did clear that up. And also I apologize for such an egregious, outrageous mistake. I mean, you can't say anything on Twitter without a Twitter warrior just coming for your head to knock it clear off.
Love Twitter.
Woo. So getting back to business.
The 6K range.
There's a lot of guys that I like in 6K range. I know you're big on Patton because I think he is, 6,700. That was kind of a shocking price. You see a guy like him at 6,700, and same with Smiley at 6,700 as well. Both those guys kind of got their heads kicked in at the U.S. Open, which wasn't a huge surprise. We weren't on either of those guys last week. Going into a tournament like Oakmont, you kind of expect just the excitement of going into the U.S. Open, the toughness of a course like that, just the intimidation level of the moment is going to hit those guys. And it did, in a big way. But then this week, they're both down to 6,700 range, and I know that you're kind of interested in Kazire.
I am more interested in Kazire than Kaufman. I just think.
Are you worried about the injury with Smiley still, or is he just in a rut? Is he in a little bit of a rut?
Is he still hungover from spring break 2016? I don't know. He has not been playing well. Kazire has been playing
2K16.
Right. And that didn't treat Ricky too well either. No, actually, that was kind of a costly little spring break for those guys. But I do like Kazire. I think. He hasn't been playing outstanding the last few events, but that's too big of a price slash for him. So I like him. Anyone else down there that you like? Who else?
There's a few guys that do look pretty good. I think Ben Martin's cheap at 6,600. Yep. He's a guy who's painful to put up with sometimes, but he has a ton of talent. And when he gets into a good run, he's one of the leaders this year in Eagles, which, you know, it's kind of a lucky sort of thing. There's not a lot of those that get scored. And I think he scored a bunch of them at one of the events, but he can get on a roll. He can start scoring some points. I think 6,600. When we saw him at 6,200 a few weeks ago, we jumped on him. It's just too low of a price for him. And so I think at 6,600, he's at a pretty nice price.
I think there's decent players in this range.
There's plenty. I think Lucas Glover, he's obviously up and down. This has been a course that's treated him pretty well over the years. But again, 6,500, you're just in a, we just need you to get to Saturday. Just get to the weekend.
I think most everyone will know that I like a more balanced approach. And especially this week, since the studs aren't that great. So.
Yeah, it will be a little bit trickier because you don't know if you're picking the stars. I mean, you just don't know if you can pick 3 stars. Who can show up? It feels just about as likely as picking 3 of the scrubs to make the cut this week, and you probably have a better chance on those guys. And looking down, there's also a couple other guys. I think Sean O'Hare at 6,400. That's a good price. GPP range only, obviously. But he's a guy, once he gets rolling a little bit, that can definitely have some top 25 potential when he's out there playing. And I'm not going to give away the guys in the 5,000 range, but there are guys this week who are playable in the 5,000 range. And DraftKings did some interesting things in terms of their pricing this week. A lot of times they've been kind of cutting it off at that 55K range, and you really don't have anybody who's playable up until about 5,900 or 6,000. There are guys in the mid 5,000s this week that are playable again, which gives you just a ton of flexibility if you're willing to take that risk and go down and grab some of those guys. So I'm definitely going to make sure to highlight at least 2 to 3 players in that sub 6K range this week that I'm looking at that I will be having on GPP rosters this week. Was there anybody else down in that sleeper range that you think is interesting?
No. I'll let you take care of them in the daily spin. Be sure to check that out this week. I think that's enough for Quicken Loans. Everything else you can find in our articles. Perry does his PGA Tour preview. You do daily spin. I do my hardcore core. Let's talk for a couple minutes at least about the European event this week, the BMW International.
We've got like the 6th European BMW event. How many BMW
I know there's a lot of
events?
BMW events.
You get them. I mean, there's at least 3 or 4 of them, right?
Yep.
I can't keep.
This is the International Open, in case you were.
It's crazy. I mean, you get the 1 in the U.S., and I think there are at least 3 on the European tour throughout the year. So
this is actually a really stacked event. I think there's more big names in this event than probably the Quicken Loans even.
It's interesting. A lot of guys are going to jump on a plane.
They are.
Fly right on over and be ready to go.
Henrik Stenson will have plenty of time to get accustomed.
This would be a great week to get back in on Stenson.
You think so?
I mean, for as garbage, as dog shit as he has played in the U.S. over about the past month or so, he tends to bounce right back out of it in Europe. I mean, even in his garbage stretch here, he went over to Europe. I think he was like 4th or something.
At the Nordea Masters.
Sure, but that's kind of his style. You know, I mean, he's able to kind of bounce back, especially in some of these weaker field type of events. And I think that having left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, is he looked great the first round of the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
He looked great. And then round 2, awful. And he claimed, and this is something I'll watch a little bit, I'm not sure if this is real or not, he claimed he had some kind of injury that made him withdraw and not play the last 2 holes. So look, if we can find any information on that, that'll be big. I never like hearing that, but I also don't know if it's real or not, because a lot of guys will just do that when they're basically eliminated from the tournament. They're frustrated. They just don't want to go back out.
And he's done that before too.
He's kind of a pissy guy in the course. So if if things are not going his way, I could definitely see him pulling the withdrawal card, hightailing it out of there to the next event and being on his way. But he could be a good bounce back play. You know, at the top of the charts, we get Sergio coming in here. What do you think of Sergio this week?
Are you big on guys coming over from an emotional event like that and flying? And then is there anything, I hear total mixed opinions, and I don't know that I'm convinced either way. I mean, I know these guys fly first class. It's probably more comfortable than our homes.
I'm sure it is.
You know, so maybe the time difference might wreak some havoc, but it's early enough. They got on a plane Sunday night.
I'm not too worried about it. I mean, there shouldn't be a huge emotional letdown. If it would have come down to like the last couple holes for Sergio, then I could see a little more of a letdown. But he kicked it in by like hole 12 or 13 when he started blowing the kind of putts that he needed to make to stay alive in the event. So I think he's probably a little bit disappointed, but I don't think it wasn't the type of crushing loss that's going to hold him for a while. But I don't think in the European side, considering how thin the field is, it's tough for me to pay up like that for Sergio, who doesn't necessarily win a whole lot of events. So I don't think I really want to pay up for him either. So I'll probably be off of Sergio there.
There's a few guys in that range, in the upper range, upper middle, I guess. Ricard Karlberg.
That's where I would start my lineup.
I think
right
so
there
too.
At around the 9,600 range. Paying up for the other guys, it's a little bit risky right there. But Karlberg at 9,600 allows you to have a couple of studs there at the top. And without having to dive into no man's land down in
There's some guys with good form coming in, and I would stick to look at current form. You could look at tournament history, although it's very limited for this course. There's only 2 relevant years that we can look at. You can look at our tournament history page to see those 2 years. Very limited data for tournament history, so really it's current form that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think one of my other favorites would be just below that. If you go down to Tyrell Hatton, his form
he's been playing really well.
Fantastic. It's been really lights out over the last few months.
Wiesberger was a little bit cheaper than I thought he would be at 9,000.
He's been rough at this course, which I think DraftKings is still trying to figure out a little bit of the pricing with these guys. So you see at the top, pretty easy for them to price, but then dropping down, they're not necessarily able to see a guy like, oh, he's missed 2 cuts here. Well, what do we do with him now? Well, now we drop him off, even though he's been playing pretty great.
Give me one more name, and then we'll keep the rest for Perry in the preview column, which is up on the site right now. Values, sleeper plays. I'm
going to give you 2. I'm going to give you 2.
Right.
One at 7,700. Everybody was so excited about this guy when the European Tour kicked off. And now everybody hates him. It's Bradley Dredge.
I was going to say.
Dredge. That's the perfect name for a guy who's just kicked it in the last few weeks.
Right.
He's played just dredgeful.
Right?
And he's been terrible. But he's had 2 really bad rounds in the time that he's played. But that shouldn't diminish the rest of the season, which actually has been pretty good. So he's at 7,700 this week. I think everybody now is done with him.
For sure.
Is done with him. So if you're looking for a decent contrarian play with a guy who's had a pretty good season overall, I can see you jumping back in. Another guy who folks should be familiar with at 7,500 is Alex Cheka. He's German, so he's going back home to play there. So he's played here many times. He's been kind of up and down, but as a GPP play, he's a guy who definitely can pop on a given week, and he's had a few real solid weeks this season. So I think he's another guy that you could take a look at this week. So those would be kind of the ones that I start with, and then as I do research over the next couple of days, I'll dig more into those unknown sleeper names in the 6,000s.
Sounds good. I do my Euro Hardcore Core as well, so I'll put that up on the site in the next day or so. That'll do it for us, I think. Email us any questions, info@fantasygolfinsider.com, on Twitter @fantasygolfers. You can join Zach on Periscope, which has a growing audience.
Free Periscope every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Otherwise, best of luck to all of you. Thank you for being loyal members of FGI. We truly appreciate it. Good luck this week at Quicken Loans.
Good luck.